Hi, Bill Vales here for another edition of Your Backyard. I'm here today with my special guest, Julie Kazmarczyk, my sister. Thanks for being here with us.
Always great to be here in New England.
I thought that we could do all this in one show. Just not possible. Just not possible. So here we are on another show. And the idea that we're trying to instill to the viewing audience is you don't need to go to any formal hiking trail, conservation area to experience nature. You can go out in your backyard.
Absolutely.
And that's where we are here. We're in my backyard, Carol's backyard, and we're looking at different things. And we're under this, another invasive species. It's a beautiful trumpet vine.
Right.
And you can see how it just
takes over.
Takes over.
Yep.
Takes over everywhere. But the thing about this that I love is this really attracts hummingbirds. You know, when this blossoms and it's getting ready to do its thing, probably this weekend, you'll see numerous hummingbirds.
Sure. And it will attract other birds because I just saw a couple ants run off of that blossom. And, you know, there's a lot of insect-eating birds. And one thing about hummingbirds, they don't only feed on nectar. They also glean a lot of insects. They have to get protein somewhere. So they will pick off fruit flies and, you know, little no-see-ums, mayflies, things like that. So the notion that hummingbirds only feed on nectar is not true.
Interesting, interesting. I know you've had some significant experiences with fairly unique species of hummingbirds with respect to the East Coast.
Yeah.
At your house in Virginia. Can you say a little bit about a couple of the experiences you had?
Yeah, I could say about 2 shows worth, but yeah, I was very fortunate to have 2 Western species of hummingbirds overwinter at our house in Chester, Virginia, which is just south of Richmond. We had a Allen's hummingbird. It was a female, and she showed up in November of 2010, and she stayed till April 16th of 2011. And she was there every day. My husband rigged up heating lamps. We knocked ice out of feeders when the heating lamps didn't thaw the nectar. And she was there feeding in the snow, sleet. Had a bander come down from the U.S. Geological Survey up in Maryland.
So this became an event when people realized that, you know, at first they must have thought, oh, she's nuts. That's not an Allen's hummingbird.
Yeah.
And then when they realized it was.
And I didn't know it was an Allen's. I knew it was something different. And the confirmation was on one little feather measurement that the bander ascertained. They put a band on her. And actually, that feather is in the Smithsonian, which is pretty cool.
And we'll have a search string for you on the website that you can look up information on the Allen's hummingbird and your experience with that.
And then had, so she stayed November through April. And then back in 2012, in December, we had another hummingbird show up, a Rufous hummingbird, which actually migrates as far as southern Alaska. And it stayed with us until April 3rd of 2013. And that was a male. He was banded also. I was able to release him, which was very cool.
Now, of all the houses that could have gone to in Virginia, how does it wind up at your house? That was just amazing. But
we have a lot of plantings.
Yeah,
you know, I had a lot of perennials.
Diversity.
Yeah, and it's a myth that if you keep your hummingbird feeders out too late, they won't migrate, meaning the ruby-throateds, which is the primary species of hummingbird we have on the East Coast.
Right.
So yeah, it was an event, and especially with the male, because I got to see him go through his entire molt.
Yeah, and you have some spectacular pictures
Yeah.
of that we'll share with the audience. And to get people from the Smithsonian Institute and throughout USGS to,
Yeah.
I mean, they must have been excited.
It was. Yeah, we did have, you know, birders, naturalists from the Richmond area come in for the first one, and I had a guest book and they could sign. And then the second one, we decided we're just going to keep it. You know, we'll send postings, but it got to be a little too much.
Well, I remember Carol and I came down that year, and I was able to add an Allen's hummingbird very easily to my life list just by looking out the kitchen window.
Yeah.
You know, and there he was.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned, Julie, at the end of our previous show about the fact that you have a banding license allows you to do salvage, meaning salvaging of bird parts, of including feathers, bones, nests, eggs, things like that. Well, Carol and I had quite an experience here this past March, and under this phone pole that we're standing, you'll notice that there's a lot of charring on the top of the pole.
Yeah.
Well, one night we came in and we heard a loud bang, loud explosion. And typically that's, you know, you've lost a transformer for a raccoon or something. Well, the next day when I came out, it turned out I found this big lump actually right over there, and it was a dead rat, and it was a large rat.
Wow.
And over a foot long. And I said, wow, we got rats. So then
got to build a bigger fence.
I found an even bigger surprise. I found a dead great horned owl.
Oh.
Okay. And I took some fairly precise measurements. I know I had spoke to you about it. And
the owl was near the rat?
Well, the owl was about here. It seemed like the owl fell pretty much straight down, and the rat sort of shot out of its talon. And you could tell that the rat was in the talon, at least at some point, because you could see the marks.
Right.
You could see the marks around the neck of the rat. Okay. So we checked this out, and we were wondering, you know, what was the reason for the demise of the owl and the rat. And then we looked up and we saw this charred area on the pole, and we realized that the owl was probably went down, got the rat, went up and perched on the neutral wire, and probably needed to, you know, adjust itself, and flapped its wings out, and the wingtip touched the hot wire, and just instantly electrocuted both of them, and really did a lot of damage to the, well, to both of them, but particularly the owl in terms of blowing off feet, melting eyes. I mean, you know, it did a lot. But I mean, this happens.
I've seen that with great blue herons and osprey. You know, they'll perch on different things, and with such a big wingspan, you know, they'll touch that hot wire, and then it's good night, Irene.
So I put pictures of the bird out. I put it on a piece of plywood, and I think the wingspan measured to be like 48 inches, so it was really a big bird. And
it's kind of king of the forest. Great horned owl,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely, a
Mhm.
huge, huge bird.
Yep.
So what I'd like to do now is walk over to where we can see a little bit of the owl. And since you
Mhm.
have a salvage
Mhm.
permit,
Mhm.
or the ability to salvage with your
Mhm.
banding permit, maybe you can look at that and see if there's anything that may be appropriate to learning
Mhm.
or education or that. So let's take a walk over to where
And
the owl is.
just to clarify, the salvage permit for you viewers at home is separate from the banding permit.
Oh,
And
okay.
there are species, you know, that are not included. Something like a bald eagle. Well, that's the premier one that comes to mind. The ivory-billed woodpecker.
If it exists.
If it exists.
If it exists.
There's always hope.
Yeah.
But
It's,
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's take a look at this.
Okay, so we're going to take a look at what remains of the great horned owl. Well, here we are at where the final resting place is of the great horned owl. This is something that I had. It's not a memorial. It's something that I had down this garden to ward off other birds.
I bet it didn't work.
Yeah, and it did not work. But this is a great horned owl. But this is nowhere near the size.
It's not to scale
of what
Sure.
this is. Down here in poison ivy.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay, so we have the remains here of the great horned owl. Now, I believe we saw this in March. And so now we're in August. And the that's the part of the head, the beak.
The beak. And you know why? What good is a salvage permit? Well, this is excellent for teaching. I am in touch with a lot of ornithologists through VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University Ornithology Department, and they have a collection of skins and different things. And so this is, you know, something that they could use for teaching. And just looking at the beak alone lends itself to, you know, if you didn't know it was a great horned owl and you had to do some CSI investigation, you look at this bill beak and you see it's definitely for tearing. You know, it's not your seed-eating bill. It's not like a probing bill for shorebird. You know, some of this has disintegrated or been eaten, but huge eye sockets, you know, and we know that owls have, you know, incredible vision.
Yeah.
And one thing, well, I'm not going to probe through to show you, but the ears on owls are asymmetrically placed, so one high, one low.
Oh.
And that lends itself to their super acute hearing.
Interesting.
Especially like in barn owls who are, you know, just going through farm fields looking for rodents. So,
Now, is that true with the great horned owl?
Yes, I would. Yes, I see it in the saw-whets. I mean, you hold the owl and you just can blow on its head to push the feathers back, and you can see the ear.
So, do you think that you'll be determining that when you get this into the lab, looking at things?
Determining.
Well, will you remove the feathers and look for the?
I'm sure the students would.
Yeah.
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 But this, so here's a wing, and I mean, looking at this, I mean, just look at the excellent camouflage.
Yeah.
You know, you hold this up against a tree, and this guy just blends right in.
Yeah, look at that.
Incredible wingspan, and so these are. So here we have the shoulder. Have
Point those to the camera.
The shoulder. the primary or flight feathers. They're not migratory. In other words, we have great horned owls here all year, and actually it is the most prevalent owl in North America. They are everywhere. And owls have special adaptations to their feathers to make them silent in flight. You probably can't pick it up on the camera, and I don't know if I can really see it on here, but they have little, they're kind of spiny. I'm not seeing it on here. Maybe some of these other feathers in the poison ivy. Oh, here we go. It allows, if you can feel it almost better than see it, and it allows the air to flow over it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
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 So yeah, big feathers. Yeah, sad.
Yeah, I mean,
ironically interesting demise. Yeah, this guy.
But I think it happens a lot.
Yep.
A lot of animals meet their demise as a result of man-made structures. I used to work with a guy at Digital that did he went to school at Indiana University and Indiana State, one of those universities, and he did his thesis on the bird deaths that occurred hitting the Indiana Tower.
Wow.
Okay, and he had accumulated data over about 3 or 4 years of all the birds during, the time of the year that they met their demise.
Sure.
And he'd collect them there, and a lot of animals meet their demise that way.
And the question, do birds have bones? Yes, they do. And, exactly where this one goes, I'm not sure. But they're hollow. And, yeah, great horned owl, very big bird, but probably weighs, I don't know, 8 pounds, maybe.
So that's interesting that the bird bones are hollow, an adaptation for flight, no doubt. Now, I would add there that I believe the bird bones for one of our diving ducks, the loon, actually has solid bones. And that's one of the things, or at least I don't know if they're completely solid, but fairly solid. And that adaptation was for diving.
To get deeper.
To get deeper.
Sure. Yes, I just touched my face after touching that owl, and I will be fine.
Yeah, well, I didn't touch any of that. Okay.
So the purpose of salvaging anything is, certainly something could go in a museum, but primarily education. Education, whether it be teaching bird anatomy or better things we can do in the environment. And, just trying to turn a kid on to nature, and get them away from, everything that's inside, because it's pretty awesome outside.
It really is a lot outside. Okay, well, we're going to leave the field now. One thing I'd like to make notice of, and maybe Carol can take a look at it, is this tree up here. We have some elm trees that are under great stress, both from Dutch elm disease, which eventually all elm trees will succumb to. But we have been so low on water this year. But our plants have been under such stress with the lack of water this year.
That's sad.
And I think these elms are history. I'm going to have them taken down, which means I'm going to have to cut them and split them. And splitting elm is always a challenge. But as we walk up back to the woods, I'm going to show you a little artistic work done with some elm.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I mentioned to you, Julie, about when we were down in the looking at the owl,
Mm-hmm.
um, pointed out the dead elm and mentioned about some artwork done with elm. Well, you can stack wood in a square or you can stack it somewhat artistically. And this is um, some stacking that
This is
Carol
beautiful.
did in a very artistic fashion out of elm wood that
Mm-hmm.
was split. It looks so good I can't even burn it.
No, I think it has to stay.
I think it does have to stay.
And it can provide some housing, I think, for some,
I'm
possibly
sure.
some birds. Carolina wren might make a little nest. Certainly your chipmunks. Yeah,
But it's
very cool.
I'll tell you, to see an area transform from just a mess and a tangle of wood
Uh-huh.
to have it, you know, stacked into, you know, almost a piece of art. Actually, here's some sort of nest over here.
Yeah, I've never seen anything quite like this.
Now, this took Carol 7 hours, a little over 7 hours to do in one day. So she really stuck to the job, and it came out beautiful. I believe, doing the calculation, it's about 2.5 cords.
Cords.
Of wood. Okay, so a cord is 128 cubic feet, 4 by 4 by 8. So
Okay.
you got to do the calculation of a circle, 2 pi r, or whatever. But yeah, looks great.
Very
Just
nice.
can't burn it now.
No.
Well, we ventured to the other end of the property. This is really on the western side of the property. The field where the owl was on the eastern side. And something I wanted to mention was that we make use of wildlife cameras here, and they've really been a treat. You know, you're always wondering, you know, what did I get pictures of that I'm not seeing? And it turned out that while we see a lot of deer, we see those, but also get pictures of them. And they're time stamped, so you get some sense for the time of the day that they're coming through. The best picture we got was of a bobcat. I think I sent that to you. Yeah, that was neat. You know? Just crossed in front of the driveway. Now, I haven't looked at the cameras for a few months, so I'm going to be curious to see if there's any out there. We're on the shoulder of Proctor Hill, okay, what's known as Proctor Hill. So we're between Hartwell Road, for the Littleton local audience, and 119. And, again, this is the area known as Scratch Flat. And Proctor Hill is a drumlin that runs north-south.
Okay.
And that's consistent with how the glacier would have laid down a drumlin.
A lot of boulders in here.
There's a ton of boulders in here.
We don't see these where I live right now.
They even become more obvious in the winter when the leaves go. But there are a lot of boulders, which makes sense from the Pleistocene Ice Age.
Oh, absolutely.
As the ice melts, it drops its what it's carrying, and it's carrying boulders, and they get dropped. And
There's a regular boulder field here.
It is. It's
everywhere I look. Yeah,
and they're big.
Yes.
You know, you see one down there that's you know, the size of a garage, and over here this is actually a tributary of Beaver Brook. As you go up 119, you cross Beaver Brook.
Right.
And this runs off of Beaver Brook behind the police station, comes down through the farmer's field, and probably winds its way, I would suspect, to Lake Maniwaki, which eventually winds its way to the Merrimack River. So this is in the Merrimack River drainage. And the other side of Littleton, somewhat marked by the Prouty Estate. I think we went up there.
I've been there a couple times. Yep.
On the eastern side of that goes to the Concord-Sudbury watershed. So that sort of bounds those two. That was an interesting sound that I heard over there. But
I'm
we'll
hearing
just-
a fish crow.
A fish crow.
Mm-hmm. I'm hearing a fish crow.
I wonder if that isn't what I just heard.
We have American crows,
Yeah.
fish crows, and fish crow is a little more nasal.
Yeah,
Yeah, their range has expanded.
interesting.
May not seem that exciting to non-birding people, but I mean there are two distinctive.
No, I'm excited. I've seen fish crow. I've seen and heard fish crow on the Cape.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hear their call, it's clearly different.
It's like, uh-oh,
Yeah.
uh-oh.
So we stopped here at another bird box, and let's take a look at what's in this bird box.
Another surprise.
Yep.
There are some nutshells down here.
Oh, okay.
I've seen some like pig nut, maybe some acorns.
See those?
So it could be mouse or flying squirrel,
Mm-hmm.
most likely.
See. Now the material. Ooh.
Ooh.
What's this up on top? Is that a? Is that a?
Oh, what is?
Yeah.
Huh.
I'm thinking of like.
Are you thinking
At first
bees?
I thought, yeah, like a bee, which that would
it-
take me out fast.
Yeah, it looks kind of downy. Like,
Yeah, you know, I
Yeah.
see this moss, which we didn't see.
yeah, which could have been the start of a chickadee.
Yep.
That was, and I just heard a chickadee.
Now, this time of year, birds are probably, they've had their brood,
They've had it.
they've fledged.
Yep.
I doubt they'd be laying another clutch of eggs at this point.
Right.
At least up here,
Right
meaning up in New England versus
now.
down in
Well, same with us. We start earlier than you, of course. Yeah, this is almost like a sawdusty material. Yeah, hearing a lot of birds in here. Hearing nuthatch and tufted titmouse, chickadee.
Now, last time you were up, you came back with pictures of, was it a hermit thrush?
Right
A hermit thrush.
down there.
You've repeatedly picked up indigo buntings. And again, I think you've picked them up in the tops of trees.
Right. Without binoculars. I tend to rely more on my hearing
Yep.
than binoculars. I like to bird by ear.
And I got tuned into the indigo bunting, and I've started to find them too. And they also seem to hang out every now and again on the driveway. They seem to consume a lot of gravel,
And grit.
which a lot of birds do.
Absolutely.
But they seem to really like the grit. I might as well take advantage while you're here to hold this. I might as well clean the nest out. Yeah.
Well, the good news is it doesn't look like a house sparrow, which would be an invasive species of bird. Which,
Yeah, so not only do we have invasive species of plants, we have invasive species of birds.
an introduced bird that
Yeah,
takes over our native birds.
and the starling was one.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were brought here to eat a particular type of caterpillar that was a pest. And now the starling is a bigger pest than the caterpillar that it was brought to eradicate. Okay, so
So I think this is nothing with bees that's adhering to the ceiling of the box.
okay, so
Okay.
we'll
Okay.
let's carry on. So we hope you enjoyed this show. I really enjoyed doing it. I hope you did.
I
and,
did. Thanks for having me.
Great.